All right, everybody, good morning. Pre-training Thursday, back at it again. Today we are discussing OfficeTools projects with an emphasis on some of the tips and tricks that go along with that tab and what we can do to accomplish that. Just as a quick test, can you guys go ahead and respond in the questions area if you guys can see my screen and hear me okay? Just want to make sure before we get going that we don't run into a situation. So just want to make sure. Looks like we're getting a couple of responses here that everything's good to go. So welcome. I'm seeing everybody commenting. I like the enthusiasm already. Projects is a big topic, so we do have a lot to cover, which you will notice if we move through my slideshow here, that there is nothing that I have written down. That's because of two reasons. Number one, there's not a set topic for this. We're going to be going through a few of the things that I want you guys to be aware of. I want to make sure that we have time for questions. So you can see in big bold letters, the only slide I really have for you today is please type in your questions. Over inside of GoToWebinar, there is a section for questions. Please do go type your information in there. As long as we have time towards the end, I will make sure to get to as many of those as I can. In the event that I don't, though, please feel free to reach out to us. There's two different ways that you can get a hold of us. Obviously, you can go to abacusnext.com/support, and you should be able to get a hold of us through that. You can also email us directly at training@officetools.com, and we'll be more than happy to get back to you. Make sure that any questions that are outstanding are answered via that if they don't get answered over this webinar. Also, as you can see here, any upcoming webinars that you guys want to sign up for, please feel free to go check those out. abacusnext.com/webinars. You guys know the drill at this point, so go take a look. All of the past webinars that we've done are also available for re-listen, re-watch, or maybe you missed it and you want to take a look and see what we talked about. You can go see what's up there. So abacusnext.com/webinars. Please feel free to check those out. And that's basically it for our slideshow today. I didn't want to keep this nice and short. Don't want to bog down this 30-minute class that we have today on a PowerPoint. So I'm going to go ahead and close down our PowerPoint here, and let's go ahead and jump into the program. So we have pulled up right now our project screen inside of OfficeTools. I'm already getting questions about some of the things I'm going to discuss, Amanda. So keep your eye out. If I don't get to it for whatever reason, then just I'll try to read to the questions here. But that is something that I'm going to bring up. So great question already about the activity list and why projects show twice. So let's discuss some of the things here. I have a basic layout. Number one, and ironically enough, Amanda, this should answer your question. There is a trend right now that offices are turning off a specific set of reminders. And Amanda's question is, why does my activity list show my projects twice? One shows as unprocessed, and then one will just show as a blank project. And we're going to discuss that as we go through. So, like I said, offices right now are trending to turn off specific sets of reminders and allowing the activity list down at the bottom to become their list of things that they actually need to work on. Instead of trying to use that as reports, they're turning off some of the top level management reminders and utilizing the report section inside of OfficeTools to get the information that is overpopulating your activity lists. So this option that we're talking about right now has to do with the reminders that are showing up on the activity list. And you guys can access these by going into the setup menu, going down to projects, and then taking a look at your project definitions. There is a global option, but it doesn't affect existing definitions. So you want to do this on a definition by definition basis. So when we open up our project definitions, we're going to access our test project here called 1040 tax return, and we're going to click edit. And when we do that, the project definition itself comes up. And you can find those alerts located over here where it says reminder options. Now, the question is from Amanda, why do the projects show up twice? But top level, let's talk about what these actually mean, and then they'll make sense on why they're actually there, what we think of as twice. So number one, we have a project due date reminder. And our project due date reminder goes to the project manager. So if you guys are familiar, you always have to have a project manager associated to a project. And the project manager is going to be the one who receives the alerts. So in this case, we have a due date reminder, and we have a if this project remains unprocessed reminder. And on the activity list, they're actually going to look very, very, very similar. Other than the word unprocessed at the end, they actually are exactly the same. But they're triggered by two different types of things. The project due date reminders option is best summarized as a not finished yet reminder. It is not completed. So basically, if we use that train of thought, it would say add to project manager's activity list 5 days before the due date if it is not completed yet. Okay. So if you're taking notes, jot that down. The top option, the project due date reminders option, will pop up on the activity list of the project manager, however many days you have set there before the due date, if it is not finished yet, if it has not been marked completed. Alternatively, if this project remains unprocessed, can be best summarized as if this project is unstarted or unassigned. So it has no bearing as to whether it's finished or not, but obviously if it was finished, it would have already been assigned most likely. What this option has to do with is whether the project has actually been moved out of the unprocessed status, which comes automatically when you create the project, and actually has been assigned to a staff member to work on. So the top option is if it is not done yet, and the second option is if it is not started yet. So you will not get this alert, the unprocessed alert, if the project has been assigned. Once you have assigned the project, the unprocessed alert will go away. And so you should see that they're actually very different options. So I hope that answers your question, Amanda. They're not actually on the list twice. It's two different alerts. One letting you know that it's not done yet, and one letting you know that it's not started yet. Now, that being said, tips and tricks right now. The trend that most offices are doing, as you can see inside of here, it represents it, is that inside of this section, we actually are turning these off. A lot of offices right now are saying my activity list is too small and too condensed to be trying to replace my reports. I don't want it to go in there and have to wade through everything that I'm quote unquote in charge of. I want to be able to look at that list and see what I need to work on. So people are actually turning both of those alerts off completely. Now, that's not turning off the assignment reminder, right? Which is when you assign out preparation of the 1040, it's still going to show up on the list. But the top level, is it done? Is it started yet? Alerts, a lot of offices are turning those off. So in this case, if we do turn it off, then you would want to go in and run your current status report and your due date report to help manage, which is obviously the idea. It's how OfficeTools was designed. We want you to use the reporting system to get the information that you're looking for. Okay. So one more time, just as a refresher here, to get back to that screen, if you go to Setup up here at the top, you drop down to Projects, and you go to Project Definitions. This is how you could get into those options. You choose the project definition that you want to work on, and then hit Edit. So James, that's how you get to it. Setup, Projects, Project Definitions. Okay. So that's tip and trick number one. If you guys feel that your activity list is becoming overcrowded, which most people do, if you guys are feeling like that, is not making a lot of sense, it's just a bunch of red items constantly overdue, this is a great way for you guys to immediately clean that up. So mull that over. That's a really good tip, a really good trick. A lot of people are taking that under consideration and using the due date reports and the current status reports to get that same type of information and removing it from their activity list. Next little tip that I want to show you guys, especially if you guys are 1 year, 2 years into OfficeTools projects, and maybe you're realizing that your original assignments aren't exactly what you needed. Maybe you want to add some, maybe you want to take some away. Even if you're a brand new user, it's good to know this. Even if you're an existing user and you've been using OfficeTools forever, this is something really important for you guys to know. Because it actually was recently updated, not like within the last month or two, but within the last year to perform this way. So if you guys are working through projects and you're realizing that that assignment group that you set up when you first talked to us at the training team, before you ever even use the system, maybe that's not exactly what you needed, right? Those assignments for those projects are not exactly what you guys do anymore. Process change, requirements change for the types of work that you do. You might need to add something. So just as a tip and a trick, if you guys go up to the setup menu, you guys should be familiar with this process though. Sorry, I'm running into a little bit of a spinning issue here. That's what you want on a live webinar, is for things to not be responding. There we go. You know, just a little tired. So if we go to projects and then we go to project assignment groups here. So set up projects, project assignment groups. This set of options that you have over here on the right, this is something that can be adjusted. And what's cool about this, because I'm sure a lot of you guys are thinking, yeah, well, yeah, I know that. But what a lot of people don't know is that if you're working on the type of work and something pops up, something new, or something that you remember, or something that you need to add, if you update that assignment group here for that project, it becomes the new available assignment group for all existing projects. So if you need to add a step that you forgot or something like that, you're not having to wait until that project rolls forward. You're not having to recreate the project. It'll immediately update the assignment group if you add something in to that specific assignment description section there. Okay, so keep that in mind. If you need to update your workflow, it's not making sense anymore, it's too granular, it's not granular enough, go in there, build it how you need it. Don't wait. Don't struggle through. Make sure that the assignments that you need are in there so you have the trackability that you need out of OfficeTools. So that's another little tip, trick right there. Take that into consideration. Next thing that I want to bring up to you guys is we do have something called the Alias Field. Are you guys familiar with that? Have you guys heard about that? Have you seen anybody talk about the Alias Field on our trainings? If not, then the Alias Field is located when you're creating or editing a project itself. Okay, so Alicia says yes, she has heard of the Alias Field. So if you need to use it, or if you're wondering what you're going to use it for, or you're wondering where it even is, if you go into the gears in the toolbar here, and you open up a project, which you guys should know is the same screen you would get if you created a brand new project, you'll notice that you have this alias field right here in this screen. And this allows you to attach a label onto the end of the project name itself. So where it says 2017-1040 tax return, it would then put a dash and then whatever you have in the alias field here. So you could see whatever the customized label that you want for that specific project. So if this is a couple parents and a child, and you want to have two 1040s for the parents and for the child, then you could label them appropriately. You could say this one is for the parents, this one is for the child, and things should start making sense in that manner. Okay. You could use this to specify whether a 1040 has a Schedule C. All right, so you could put Schedule C in there, because you don't want to necessarily have a whole nother project for a Schedule C, but you definitely might want to put in the alias field there that they have a Schedule C. You could put in the individual states, for the state returns that they need to file, or whatever it might be. You guys can get the picture there. So if I put in this, just so you guys can see, we'll put in alias. Alicia is saying we use it for when extensions are filed for returns. That's a great use for it. So you could stick the extension date in the alias so that you know, one, that it's been extended, and two, what date you actually filed that extension. That's a great use for it. Okay. And you guys can see if I click OK now, that it puts that dash alias right there, bright red letters on the project screen. Okay. So again, something that's not directly obvious, but is a really, really, really helpful tool to get going on this. Another thing too, when it really boils down, we have something called a ghost staff concept or fake staff member. If you guys don't know, OfficeTools, when you guys have your licenses, so let's just say you have 5 licenses. Okay? That doesn't mean you can only have 5 staff in the system at once. That means that only 5 people can be logged in to the program at one time. But you could have 10 staff members entered. You could have 15 staff members entered. Okay? So if you guys in projects have, let's just say, a situation where you have a group of tax preparers and as tax returns come in, a tax preparer goes and grabs a tax return right off the shelf or the queue. I've been in a lot of offices. I've done a lot of on-sites. I've heard this referred to as the shelf of despair, the drawer of doom, that concept of where everything goes to accumulate, and as people go and need work, they just grab something out of that, drawer of despair per se. Okay. Well, you can emulate that quote-unquote drawer of doom, shelf of despair, inside of OfficeTools. That way you can still assign the project when it gets in your office, but you can have it to where your staff knows where to go to look and see what has been plugged into OfficeTools and is checked into the office, but has not yet been grabbed, has not yet been accounted for by a tax preparer. And the way that you'd be able to do that is by going in and creating a quote unquote fake staff or ghost staff member, as we kind of refer to it. So you can see here, we have this one in OfficeTools right now called unassigned work, bottom left-hand corner. You guys can't see that. And as I go through, if I assign this to somebody, let's just say I assign this project out. I want to get this going. When I assign this project to input and prep, or whatever it might be, whatever your guys' first step is, I can specify that I want that to go to the unassigned work staff member. That way, it's not assigned to a specific person, but everybody knows anything on this list needs to be grabbed and moved onto their activity list. So if I click yes, and I go take a look at unassigned work, let's turn on my assignments down here. You can see that it shows up. It'll show up with the due date, which means that technically it'll be in the proper order as to when things actually came in the office. You'll have a nice, neat list of the exact tax returns that have not been grabbed by an actual staff yet in the order that they came in. And all the staff member needs to do to move it from this ghost staff concept is just right click on that task. And when they do that, they can go reassign and assign it right to themselves. So it's self-serve. Managers don't need to be involved. The staff member, the tax preparer themselves can go grab that specific input prep for that specific tax return, assign it to themselves, and you guys should be good to go. So you can utilize that concept for anything project related. And again, remember that does not take up a license because that staff member will not be logged in. So if you only have 5 and that's your 6th staff is the ghost staff, we're not trying to create a situation where you have to pay us more money. You're not going to log in as them, so you're completely free to use that idea regardless of how many licenses you have. And please feel free to use that as many times as you need. So if you have the same concept for when it hits review as when it hits preparation, create a review staff and a preparation staff. That way you have the capability of assigning it to the preparation queue, and also when that's done, they can assign it to the review queue. So you have that idea, you have that concept, and you can make use of it as you guys see fit. That's just a great tip, a great trick that a lot of offices take advantage of to make sure that they're managing things appropriately. So speaking of extensions and projects, I do want to bring this up to you guys because it does affect things like reporting, the due date of the project and whatnot. If you guys get to the point where you need to extend things, and there's a lot of those things that you need to extend at once, for example, 1040s. While the extension is not actually happening within OfficeTools, you do have the capability and also the necessity of changing the due date within our program to represent the new and updated extension date or due date. And there's been a lot of questions that I've seen come through our training inbox recently on this, which is why I threw it in here, because I do want to clear any questions up that you guys have on this. Okay? So for example, what you're going to use to do our extensions is go into the manage button. This manage button is very, very, very powerful. It's also very dangerous. You can see in there, use with caution. Okay? It's not a light-handed option here because you can do mass deletions. Most staff don't have access to this. So this would be for, system admins and that type of thing. But if I go into the Manage button, it'll give me a list of all of my active projects that I have inside my system. And what I can do is I can go in there and I can filter down to the specific subset that I want to look for. Now, don't mind my sample data here. It's definitely not most up to date. But let's say I want to grab all of my 2017 1040s, and I want to see anything that's not done yet that is a 2017 1040. And you can see our list filtered down pretty quickly to our two specific projects here. You guys might have more than this, right? It might be 100, 150, 50, 25, who knows? The idea here is that I filtered down to the 2017 1040s that are not done yet. So I can go ahead and select all of them that I want to mark on the extension using the checkboxes individually, or the select all option down at the bottom. And I can go into change. And when I go into change, I can simply check off the box that says move to first extension and apply that change to all of my selected projects. And what that'll do for me, it'll go through all those projects, check our extension box off, and effectively move our due date. That way, when you run reports, you can see the projects that have been moved to extension, because now their due date is now going to be, in this case, 10/15. So it creates trackability. It's an easy way to do it. You're not having to go in project by project and plug in the information. Now, there could be certain instances where you want to go in project by project. In Alicia's example, she went in and put in the data was filed and into the alias. That way it was trackable in that manner. And that's fine too. But here's a great way to do this in mass to change the due dates. Okay? So just something to put in your belt to use later on. This is not the only thing that you can use Manage for, but that's a whole nother conversation. Okay. So for extensions and stuff like that, you can always access this. And one more time, just so you guys know how to get here, we're under the Projects tab currently. And inside the Projects tab in the toolbar, there is a Manage button. And if you just click on that Manage button, it pulls open that screen. You guys could see I'm spinning again. My system's just a little tired today, I guess. So that's how you guys will get there. You guys will see that Manage button right there in the toolbar. Again, just as a reminder, any questions that you guys have, please feel free to drop that in. Jackie, that's how you get there. So you guys should be able to work from there. A couple other things I want to bring to your guys' attention just because of how great it is. A lot of people don't know about this option. So I'm sure a lot of you guys who have used OfficeTools for any amount of time know about the missing information section here in the middle. You've at least seen it. You know what it's supposed to do. You know what it's supposed to track. And maybe even some of you guys use it. So first of all, the first thing I want to bring up, because I'm surprised sometimes at how many people use the missing information or at least know what it is, but don't know how to actually interact with this list. So there's two basic things. Actually, real quick, before we jump back into that, Jennifer asks, when you check the box for the extension, does it change the due date? So that's actually a tricky question, Jennifer. So when you check the box, it changes the due date in the system. Okay, so if I go into the project here, and we can see that we have a due date of 4/17 and an extension of 10/15. When you check the box off, it changes the due date in the system. So if you go run a due date report now for 4/17 or 4/15, whatever it actually is at that point, that project will not show up. Okay? Because the due date has technically been moved to 10/15. Okay? But the due date in the due date field, right here, this will not change. Okay, so we are not going to be changing that actual field there. So if you're trying to see that update into the due date field, that's not going to happen. But when you check the box, the due date does change in the database for that project. So any due date reports that you run will now represent 10/15, not 4/17. Okay, but it's okay that the due date field itself on the project remains the same. That's how it's supposed to be. Okay. William, we're not doing polls in this simply because it's just a free training. It's not a typical webinar, so no polls. You're not missing anything on that. You should be good to go. Charles asks a great question about due date and delivery date. Right after I do missing info, Charles, we're going to jump into that bottom section, and I'll answer your question then. Okay. So missing information, this section. So one major thing that I want you guys to know about inside of here that a lot of people still, like I said, surprisingly don't do or don't know about is the email component on interacting with that list. So obviously you guys can use the items and issuers if you guys have those filled in. You can fill in 1040s, bank statements, so on and so forth down the list. I'm sorry, W-2s, 1040s, bank statements, all that kind of stuff. You could go into the issuer and put in their employer, whatnot. Most people just type it into the description what they're missing, right? So let's just say we're missing a W-2 from Walmart. Okay. But more importantly, once you fill this list in, what's the point of using that list? Well, number one, obviously you can track it, so you could see what's missing, right, from the project. You can see what's been received, so on and so forth. All that kind of stuff is available there. Okay. But most importantly, this list is meant to go to the client. You need to alert them that you're missing things. Okay. So this can be emailed directly to the client by going into the envelope icon up here and actually clicking email missing info. As long as you have a email provider set up through OfficeTools, most likely Outlook, an email will pop up automatically with that email address from that client that they have on file, and you'll be able to send this off and track inside of the notes section of OfficeTools that you sent it. So it becomes a trackable thing for you, comes a little bit of ammo for you, and obviously your client's now alerted that you need to get some information from them. So keep that in your back pocket too. That's kind of the first of two things I want to show you. We're getting quite a few texts inside of here. I read the word text. We're getting quite a few questions on this. Jennifer asked, how do you add the items and issuers? That's really simple. You just go to setup, projects, and you'll see missing info items and missing info issuers right here. So if you want to add to that drop-down menu, you can do that. Like I said, though, most people are just typing it right in because there's so many things that could be missing. And remember, this is not just for tax returns. It's for any project that you have. So most of the time, people are just popping it into the description. That way, they don't have to worry about those items and issuer lists. But this is where you can go to access them. Can you auto-populate a missing info list when we create a project? Kurt asks. That's a great question. And that's actually the second thing I want to show you guys. Technically, the answer is no. But I do have something that could get you probably about halfway there, Kurt. And that's what I was going to bring up anyway. So great question. Frank asks, is this program able to send texts? The only text message that we can send is via the schedule. So if you guys have questions on that, please feel free to reach out to us. Not part of this specific webinar. And Charles asks, can you update the email template? And that, Charles, absolutely. If you go to the setup menu to access the email template for the missing info or any other email templates, you go to My Company, Information and Settings. And then inside of here, you'll see the email template section. So Setup, My Company, Information and Settings. Click on Email Templates down at the bottom. And then you'll see, if you look over here on the left, all of your different templates. So you can see right here, email missing info, and you can update what is in that template before it goes out. Great questions. So Kurt, let me get to the second thing that we can do with missing information that a lot of people, I would say probably about 95% of people, don't know about. The specific question is, can you auto-populate a missing info list when we create a project? Like I said, the answer to that is no. You can't technically auto-populate a missing information list. But what you can do, and where this is a little bit helpful in that scenario, and where it's definitely helpful in a lot of cases, is under the Setup, My Company, Information and Settings options, right? If you guys are familiar, that's your global options. Right? Setup, My Company, Information and Settings. We're going to jump into the project section here. And you'll see this option. And a lot of people don't know about it. But it says copy missing information to the new project. So what this does is this changes the missing information section inside of the project to be more of a needed information section. Meaning you're not specifying after you got information what you're missing. you're specifying ahead of time what you need from that client. And this will roll forward. You can see it says copy the missing information to the new project. So you'll be taking the list that you have this year and taking it over into the following year. So the question, Kurt, can you auto-populate a missing information list when you create a project? Technically, the answer is no. But you can, if you did fill in missing information in that list on the project, have it roll forward. So that way you have the same list this year that you want, or that you'll have the same list next year that you have this year, and it's available for you. So again, it's creating a concept of it being needed information instead of missing information, but you can use it that way. Okay. All right, and then the last thing that we're going to talk about today, just due to the time that we have on this, is down here at the bottom, the difference between cost and fee, the difference between delivery date and due date. There's a couple things inside of here. So basically, inside of this section, there's a cost and a fee, right? There's a delivery date and a due date. And I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of what this section is down here at the bottom. So let's start off by defining that, and then we'll go through quick examples here. We'll look at last second questions and we'll wrap up. So cost and fee, just immediately. Remember that the section down at the bottom is your project budgets. These are budgeting the hours, budgeting cost, budgeting delivery date, and budgeting fee. These are not actuals, unless you look at the second line there where it says actual. The top line is where you're budgeting your information. So when we have a cost, this is how much it's going to cost to you guys as a firm. So this is going to be based off the staff cost rate, not billing rate, cost rate. So effectively some sort of derivative of how much that staff is getting paid if you guys populate that in there. A lot of people decide not to do that, but that is what that's pulling from. It'll multiply the hours that that staff tracks by their cost rate and develop an actual cost for you. So if you're trying to meet profitability numbers, you can stick a cost in there and make sure that you try not to go over that. Alternatively, your fee section then would be how much you're trying to bill the client. So if you're trying to maintain a 60% or 300% profit, then you can specify your cost as 200 and your fee as 600, or whatever it might be, right? The fee is how much you want to bill the client. So that's the difference between cost and fee. Right? Cost is to the firm, fee is to the client, and that's really simple. A lot of people get those mixed up. They end up tracking the wrong thing in the wrong spot. So just wanted to give you guys that little tip there. You got your cost and you have your fee. Stephen asked in this question, can we restrict the cost? Absolutely. There are specific user rights actually called view costs under projects. You can take a look at those. That way, that's remaining sensitive and hidden from staff who don't need to see it. And the difference between delivery date and due date, just to jump back to, who asked that? Charles. Charles asked that. Just to jump back to Charles' information, delivery date is an internal due date. Think of it that way. It's when you want to get it back to the client. Okay? Not when it's technically due, because obviously 1040 is due 4/17 or 10/15. But your delivery date can help you track from when you get it, right? When you get it in the office, how many days you want before it gets back out, before it's finished, right? Because in the case of a 1040, for example, they're all due 4/17. So does that due date really help you manage anything? It probably doesn't, especially if you get information in March and that due date might be different than information you get in January. So you want to make sure that you can go ahead and do that. And there are going to be alerts. They're called, or notifications. They're called alerts. So you'll see down here bottom left, it's called alerts. There'll be little exclamation points at 75% and 90% of those budgets. It goes for all four of these, Charles, as far as the notifications are. But if you go down to alerts, they'll look like little exclamation points on your activity list, and you can see that. How is the delivery date different than the delivery tab? Delivery, again, is when you want it done by. Has nothing to do with actually getting it to the client, whereas the delivery tab inside of here is where you can go and track how you got it to the client, how you got it to the government. Did you email it? Did you e-file it? Did they come pick it up? And the dates that they did those things. So the delivery is the method. the delivery date is when you want to get it done by. All right, guys. Well, we are at our time. Any other questions that come up, please feel free to email in, training@officetools.com. Kurt, that's a little bit more specific, so please feel free to email in. I'll help you out with that question that you asked last, and we'll get you situated on that. I hope you guys enjoyed this. Please, again, any questions that come up, training@officetools.com. Take a look at the upcoming webinars. Go ahead and sign up for next week's. See what's appealing to you guys, and we'll go from there. I appreciate everybody's attendance. You guys have a great day. We'll talk soon.